Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Wayne. When everything you believed in gets ripped apart, you need to process it somehow. When I found out that my wife of many years had cheated on me, I confronted her immediately. Even though she begged for a second chance, I rejected whatever proposition she brought. I always believed in marriage. I felt that family was the most essential thing in the world, and I built my entire life around that belief. Let me take you back to the beginning. My wife and I have been married for many years now, though it feels strange to even say my wife anymore after everything that happened. We met online when we were younger, back when dating apps and websites were starting to become the standard way people connected. We talked for weeks before we ever met in person, and when we finally did, there was a spark. After a few months of dating, we decided we wanted to build a life together. Everything wasn't perfect from day one. We argued sometimes and got on each other's nerves the way couples do when they're learning how to share their lives with another person. But I thought we were stable most of the time. After about 3 years of dating, my girlfriend told me she was pregnant. I remember the moment she showed me the test. I won't lie and say I wasn't scared, because I was. We weren't exactly planning to have a baby right then, and I knew it would change our lives in ways we couldn't fully predict. But I also felt something else: excitement, responsibility, a sense of purpose. This was going to be my family. So we decided to get married before the baby came. We didn't have a big, elaborate wedding with hundreds of guests and a fancy venue. We kept it private with a few close friends and family members. Some people might have judged us for doing things differently, but I didn't care what anyone else thought. What mattered to me was that I was committing to this woman and to the child we were bringing into the world. I was going to be a husband and a father, and I was determined to do both jobs right. Our son was born some months after the wedding. He was so small and fragile. In that moment, looking down at his face, I made myself a promise that I would give him and my wife the best life I possibly could. I didn't come from money growing up. My own childhood was fine, but there were times when things were tight. I didn't want that for my son. I wanted him to have opportunities one never had growing up. I wanted him never to have to worry about whether we could afford something he needed, whether that was school supplies, sports equipment, or eventually college tuition. I wanted my wife to be comfortable, not to have to stress about money, to be able to enjoy her life. So I worked hard. I took jobs that paid well, but required me to travel a lot. I was away from home for days, sometimes weeks at a time. It wasn't easy. I missed my family every single day I was gone. But I did it because I had a purpose. Every business trip, every late night working on presentations in some hotel room, every sacrifice I made, it was all for them. It was all so my wife and son could have a comfortable life in a lovely house in a safe neighborhood. Here's the thing though, even with all that travel, even with all that time apart, I never stopped loving my wife. Not for a second. If anything, being away made me appreciate her more. When I was on those business trips, I'd count down the days until I could get back home. Those moments when I came home were everything to me. I believed our marriage was strong enough to handle my work schedule. I knew it wasn't ideal. I knew being apart so much was hard, but I thought we had something that could withstand it. I'd heard stories before about guys who travel for work and come home to find out their wives have been cheating on them. But I always told myself that wouldn't be me. That was other people's problems, other people's marriages. My situation was different. My wife loved me. I loved her. We had built something real together. We had a son, a home, a life. She understood that I was working hard for our family. She knew I was doing it all for us. I was convinced that we were the exception to the rule, because I trusted her completely. After many years of being married, I came home one day to find out that my wife was feeling sick. At first, it was small things. She'd mentioned feeling tired more than usual. But she usually brushed it off for a while, saying it was probably stress, or maybe she was getting older, and her body wasn't what it used to be. I encouraged her to go to the doctor, but she kept putting it off. You know how some people are about going to the doctor. They don't want to make a big deal out of things, or they're scared of what they might find out, so they ignore the symptoms and hope they go away. That's what she did. She ignored it for months. But eventually, the symptoms got worse. They got to the point where she couldn't ignore them anymore. The pain became more intense. She was losing weight without trying, and she felt exhausted all the time. Finally, she went to the hospital for a checkup. I remember the day I got the phone call. I was actually out of town for work, sitting in a hotel room, going over some documents, when my phone rang. It was her, and I could tell immediately from her voice that something was wrong. She told me she'd gotten the test results back, and the doctors had found something. She said I needed to come home right away. My heart just dropped. I felt this cold wave wash over me. I asked her what they found, and she said the doctors wanted to talk to both of us together. I booked the earliest flight I could get and rushed home. When we sat down with the doctors, they gave us the news. Pancreatic cancer. Those 2 words shattered my heart. The doctor explained that it was already at an advanced stage because she'd been ignoring the symptoms for so long. By the time she finally came in, the cancer had progressed to the point where treatment options were limited. They could try chemotherapy to slow it down, maybe buy some time, but they were honest with us. This wasn't something we were going to beat. This was about managing it, about making whatever time she had left as comfortable as possible. I felt like the ground had disappeared from under my feet. There's no other way to put it. She was dying, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I felt helpless in a way I'd never felt before. I'm the kind of person who likes to fix things and take action to solve problems. But there was no fixing this. I was angry at the universe, angry at fate, furious that this was happening to us. Why her? Why now? What had we done to deserve this? But anger doesn't change anything. It doesn't make cancer go away. I made a decision right then and there. I wasn't going to let her face this alone since our son recently got into college. I immediately started making changes to my life. I called my boss and told him I needed to cut back my hours significantly. I turned down projects that would have required travel. I said no to opportunities that would have taken me away from home. My career had always been important to me, but in that moment, none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was being there for my wife. I wanted to be by her side through this nightmare. I also hired a personal nurse to come to the house and help take care of her when I am not around. I'm not a medical professional. I didn't know how to manage her medications, how to handle the side effects of treatment, how to monitor her condition properly. So I found someone who did. It was expensive, but I didn't care about the money. What was I going to do? Save money while my wife suffered? No. She needed proper care, and I was going to make sure she got it. I threw myself into being her caregiver and her support system. I went with her to every doctor's appointment, holding her hand while doctors explained treatment plans, side effects, and prognosis. I researched pancreatic cancer online, reading medical journals and patient forums, trying to understand what we were dealing with and what we could do to fight it. I learned about different treatment options, clinical trials, dietary changes that might help, and anything that could slow down the cancer's progression or make her more comfortable. During this time, I really believed we were in this together. When you go through something like this, when you're dealing with a terminal illness, you think it strips away all the unimportant stuff and leaves only what really matters. I thought what really mattered was us, our marriage, our love for each other, our commitment to facing this battle as a team. I held her when she was scared. Our son did come back once in a while to check up on us. I stayed up with her on nights when the pain was too bad for her to sleep. I helped her to the bathroom when she was too weak to walk on her own. I cooked meals she could actually keep down. I sat with her during chemotherapy sessions, watching the poison drip into her veins, hoping it would kill the cancer faster than it killed her. Through all of it, I never once thought about leaving. I never once considered walking away. She was my wife, and I loved her, and I was going to be there for her no matter what. That's what I believed. That's what I thought our marriage was. While we battled through, something unexpectedly happened one day. My wife was in the hospital again, going through another round of treatment. The chemo was hitting her hard, and she was exhausted most of the time. She asked me to do her a favor, send a message to one of her friends. She said her phone was in her bag, and she was too tired to reach for it. Could I just let this friend know she wouldn't be able to make their lunch date next week? Simple enough, right? I had no reason to think twice about it. I grabbed her phone from her bag, unlocked it with a passcode she gave me, and opened up her messaging app. I finished sending the text and was about to put the phone down when I saw names I didn't recognize. Men's names. And the preview text of the most recent messages made my stomach drop. I stood there in that hospital room, my wife sleeping in the bed a few feet away from me, and I couldn't describe how it felt. I clicked on the first conversation, then the second, then the third. Each one was worse than the last. These weren't just friendly conversations. These were full conversations with men she had been seeing behind my back. There were photos too. Not the kind you'd want to see your wife sending to anyone but you. I scrolled back through the message threads, and some of them went back months. One of them went back over a year. She was meeting up with them whenever I was out of town on business. Using the freedom my absence gave her to betray me over and over again. After reading all these, I had to sit down in a chair next to her hospital bed because my legs felt weak. Here I was, spending every dollar I could to get her the best care possible. I had hired a private nurse to make her comfortable. I had cut back my work hours, turning down projects that would have brought in good money, because I wanted to be there for her during this fight. And the whole time, she had been with other men. She was lying to my face every single time I came home. Every time she kissed me hello. Every time she told me she missed me. I read through message after message, and each one felt like a knife in my chest. There were messages where she was complaining about me to these guys, saying I was never home, saying she felt lonely, like that somehow justified what she was doing, that I don't know how long I sat there reading through her phone. Everything felt strange. My whole reality had just been turned upside down. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about my wife, about my life was a lie. The woman sleeping in that hospital bed wasn't the person I thought she was. I had been loving and sacrificing for a stranger, and she had been taking advantage of my trust, my love, my absence, to do whatever she wanted with whomever she wanted. When she finally came home from the hospital a few days later, I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't pretend I hadn't seen what I saw. I couldn't just go on like everything was normal. So I waited until she was settled in, until the nurse had left for the day, and I sat down across from her in our living room. I had her phone in my hand. I didn't even know where to start, so I just put the phone down on the coffee table between us and said, I saw the messages. That's all I had to say. The look on her face told me everything. She knew exactly what I was talking about. There was no confusion. No, what messages? She knew she'd been caught. She tried to say something, but I cut her off. I told her I had read everything. I asked her how long it had been going on. She started crying, saying it wasn't what I thought, but then she stopped herself because we both knew that was garbage. It was exactly what I thought. I asked her why. Why would she do this to me? Why would she throw away everything we had built together? She didn't have a good answer. She said she felt lonely when I was gone. She said she made mistakes. She said she never meant to hurt me. But none of that meant anything. Those were just words. Empty words that didn't change what she had done. I asked her if she ever really loved me, or if our entire marriage had been a lie. She swore she loved me, that these other men didn't mean anything, that it was just physical, just a way to fill the emptiness when I wasn't there. But that made it worse, not better. She had risked everything we had for men who didn't mean anything. That was supposed to make me feel better? I told her I was done. I said it clearly, calmly, even though inside I was falling apart. I told her the marriage was over. I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't stand next to her hospital bed, holding her hand, taking care of her, knowing what she had done, knowing that while I was breaking my back to provide for our family, she was sneaking around behind my back. That's when she really broke down. She started begging me not to leave. She grabbed my hands and pleaded with me to give her another chance. She said she was sorry, that she would do anything to make it right, that she needed me. She reminded me of all the years we had been together, all the memories we had made, our son, and the life we had built. She told me she was dying, that she only had a few months left, and she didn't want to spend them alone. She asked me if our history together meant nothing. Suppose I could really walk away from her when she needed me most. She cried harder than I had ever seen her cry, begging me to forgive her. But I couldn't. I know that might sound cold to some people. I know there are people who would say I should have been the bigger person, that I should have forgiven her because she was dying, that I should have put aside my hurt and anger to be there for her in her final months. But I couldn't do it. Every time I looked at her, all I could see were those messages. All I could think about was her with those other men. All I could feel was the betrayal. The trust that our marriage was built on was gone. And without trust, what did we have? Nothing. Just two people living in the same house, pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. I told her no. I rejected her pleas for a second chance. I told her that what she had done was unforgivable, that I had given her everything and she had thrown it all away. I had been faithful to her every single day of our marriage. I never once thought about being with another woman. I never once betrayed her trust. And she couldn't say the same. She had betrayed me over and over again with multiple men for months or even years. How was I supposed to forgive that? I told her I was moving out. Our son was already away at college, living his own life on campus, so at least I didn't have to make him choose sides in real time. That made the logistics easier. I didn't have to explain to a kid living under the same roof why his parents were suddenly sleeping in different rooms. But just because it was logistically simpler doesn't mean it hurt any less. Packing up my things was one of the hardest things I've ever done, and I've been through some difficult situations in my life. I found a small apartment across town. It was nothing like the home we had built together over the years. And let me tell you, it's been one of the loneliest experiences of my life. My son and I later had some difficult conversations about what happened. He's caught in the middle of this mess, and I hate that for him. He loves his mother, and he loves me, and now he's watching his family fall apart in the worst possible way. He's asked me if I'm sure about my decision. He's asked if I can find a way to forgive her, especially now that she's dying. He's even suggested that maybe I could be there for her as a friend, if not as a husband, so that she doesn't have to go through this alone. And I understand where he's coming from. He's trying to hold on to some version of the family he grew up with, trying to make sense of a situation that doesn't. But I've had to be honest with him. I've told him that I can't pretend everything is okay when it's not. I can't fake forgiveness I don't feel. I can't stand by her bedside and act like she didn't betray me in the deepest way possible. It wouldn't be fair to her, and it wouldn't be fair to me. It would be a lie, and I'm done with lies. I'm not going to stand here and tell you I'm entirely at peace with my decision, because I'm not. There are nights when I lie awake, wondering if I'm making a terrible mistake. Then I remember she threw it all away. She chose to betray me, not once but multiple times, with various people. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. That's a pattern. And I can't just forget about it because she's dying now. This is not an easy story to hear. There's no happy ending here, no neat resolution where everything works out and everyone learns a valuable lesson. This is just real life, messy and painful and complicated. If you're out there and going through something similar, you need to know that you're not alone. Maybe someone else is struggling with whether to forgive a betrayal, whether to stay or go, whether love is enough to overcome broken trust. I don't have the answers for you. I barely have answers for myself. But I can tell you this. Whatever you decide, make sure it's a decision you can live with. Make sure you're being honest with yourself about what you can and can't handle. And don't let anyone else tell you what you should feel or do. This is your life, your pain, your choice. I made mine, and I'm living with it one day at a time. That's all any of us can do.